The recent trial of former Tennessee House Speaker Glenn Cassida and his one-time assistant Cade Cothran took place in federal court. That meant no cameras or digital devices of any kind were allowed inside. So how to illustrate the banner's coverage? Well, we turned to artist Paul Collins. Working on paper and using only dry media, like pencils and markers, Paul drew the courtroom in real time, including the defendants, the attorneys, and the judge, bringing the proceedings to life visually. Now, Paul doesn't do court sketching full-time, but he did know from a very young age that he would end up an artist one way or another. I'm Demetria Kalodimos. It's Banner and Company. I know that you grew up in New Jersey.
I did.
Close enough to New York City where you were seeing galleries and museums and getting this incredible education growing up?
About a half an hour away. And yes, close enough that we would go in. We'd go in occasionally. My mom is a interior designer and a lighting designer. So growing up, she would go into New York to go to school. And so then she'd occasionally take us in.
Did you do formal art study? Was that going to be your path?
I made art since I was a little kid and was really encouraged by my parents until we got to college. And then it was not considered to be a serious line of endeavor. And so I was going to do something else. But, you know, there was just no escaping it. Because I can remember exactly when I knew this is what I had to do. And that's... My dad was a lawyer, and I went to college to be an international lawyer, and I still don't know what that is, except for the fact that I would be a lawyer like my dad, and I'd get to travel. That sounded cool. I did a study abroad program in Spain, and while I was there, I was in a youth hostel, and I was drawing a plastic phone, a really old Bakelite, black, big handle, chunky phone, and I drew it for like 2 hours, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is all I want to do is focus on this form and trying to figure out how to draw it. And that's when I knew that I had to, that's what I had to commit to, that there was no escaping it, like I said.
So that phone was your calling.
The phone was my calling. Yeah, exactly. And then convincing my parents was a totally different deal, but that was the moment.
Was there much? You had to go into a different paying career for a while, though, right?
Oh, let's see. Yes. So I went to graduate school for art. I graduated with a Master's of Fine Arts, which basically qualifies you to flip hamburgers. And my first job was working at a farmer's market. I did not get a teaching job out of the gates, and so I had to figure out something. So I started working at art centers and then went into doing graphic design for art centers, self-taught, and then got into web stuff. And for 15 years, I worked as I was a programmer, and I did rich media development for the last 10 for entertainment companies in New York.
That's pretty creative, though.
Oh yeah, I loved it. It was really interesting. I tried to be a graphic designer and make art at night, and that did not work. That just, it was exhausting. But programming is like puzzle work. There are solutions, and you can work towards solutions, and you can test solutions, and that's really different from art, because art is, or at least in the way I explore it, is soft, experimental, and there isn't a lot of proofs. It's about developmental awareness, and so programming and making art worked really well together for a while. But I still jumped at the chance to. I always wanted to be a teacher. So I gave my notice in 2 weeks, so we moved out of New York towards an opportunity as soon as I got one.
Why? Was there a great teacher in your past? Did you know that you could really make a difference, or?
Oh yeah, 100%. There are great teachers in my past. I like really important people who were, in the case of art, when I first met somebody who wasn't teaching me standards, but trying to be responsive to what I was trying to do. Like they weren't telling me the way to do it. They were trying to like read me and help me figure out my own rules. That was really eye-opening. And I thought that's something that I would really like to do. I also come from the family teachers. Everybody in my family has taught at one time or another. And so it's just sort of in the blood.
That is an approach toward teaching art, because I remember in the back of comic books, et cetera, it was, if you can draw this
parrot,
yeah.
If you can draw this parrot, then you can go to art school, yeah.
But that was that rigid idea that you had to draw a certain way, utilizing shapes and stuff, and that's, I'm taking it, not the greatest way to teach art?
I should just agree with you, but there's different things work for different people, honestly. And so I think at a level, and if we're talking about the fine arts, by fine visual arts, if you're talking to artists who need to define themselves uniquely, they have to find their own response to art, then you can't just apply, this is what Leonardo would do, or this is, artists are going to write the rules into the work differently. And so you have to be able to read those rules. And actually, I think the best thing that my best teachers did is they told me when I was writing the rules in a confusing way. It's not that they agreed or disagree with my rules, but they're like, you can be clear.
So you're fascinated by that telephone, and then you start drawing other sort of pedestrian things.
Yes.
Why? Why not something that's just glorious and beautiful and out of this world?
Oh, it's probably just like a taste thing, or it's just personal. I think that I can talk more clearly and more truthfully about big truths by addressing small truths. So I consider myself a diarist, and so I feel like I can probably do a better job of talking about the reality of the cosmos by drawing my dog. I just believe that.
You did what are called a series of drawing essays, or at least that's your word for them. Where did that idea come from? And was that daily work where I'm going to almost have a diary, as you said?
Yeah, I'd go someplace and I regrettably called them Fortnite sessions, and this is right at the time the video game Fortnite came out. And so
has nothing to do with that.
It had nothing to do with the video game. But the whole idea is that I'd go spend 2 or 3 weeks, and I'd go to someplace every day. And so that I didn't have time to plan too much, like, I'll come up with a grand strategy of how I'm going to address it, because it is sort of unrelenting in that you just go every day. And it was important to, you asked me 2 questions. First of all is, how did I start doing that, or why did I start doing that? And the reason was really about like the invasion of maybe it's a situation of doubt. But after the 2016 election, I really came to doubt the power of me making individual works in my studio where I had a total control of the process, and just relying on my own imagination. I thought I needed to really open up my world, and I needed to that I had to face the possibility that I didn't know anything at all. And so I embarked on a series of more and more sort of public projects. I did a mural, and I started, just like I said, I could just like look at my dog and think that this is, I started with the gas station, Heritage Fuel, great title. Heritage Fuel just down from me, 2 blocks from me on 12 South here in Nashville, up by Belmont. And that's a place I'd gotten gas. Didn't know anybody, didn't know anything about the place. I would just pull in, get my gas, and leave. And so I showed up, and I thought, well, what happens if I like really try to spend some time here and learn what's happening? And it was just a mind-blowing experience. It was a really incredible experience, because Heritage Fuel had a single employee, Sam Atala, who was there. He was there for the 7 days a week that it was open. He opened it at 4:30 in the morning, and he closed it at night. He was not the owner of that gas station, so it was his responsibility. And so I had to like get permission from Sam to just be in front. And I did that through doing a series of portraits of Sam,
Did Sam think you were nuts?
Probably at first, no doubt at first. My first portrait I did of Sam, he was like, okay, and this was not day one. Sam wasn't just like, hey, if you do a portrait, you can hang out. He was looking at me from the side of his eye and like, what are you doing here? I wasn't really posing a threat, so I seem harmless. I'm like an artist. But then, it came clear that he sort of favored the idea. So I did a portrait of him, and the next day I showed up and he said, my wife doesn't like the portrait. You made me look funny. So I did another portrait, and that one he liked and she liked, and he lost it. And so I did another one. So you go to any place, you go to any parking lot, any corner of grass in this city, it's air quoting here to a mic. It's owned by somebody. Somebody sees that as their place, and they're going to come to you and they're going to tell you what they think about what you're doing, and then if you're harmless or you engage, they're going to give you ideas about other things to do. They're going to tell you the truth of the place. They're going to say, well, you can't miss this. And so every place that I've been, I found that. And anyway, I found it a really interesting way to work.
When did you know you were done at a certain location?
Oh, well, see, at first I said, look, I'm going to do this for 2 weeks. And so that was it. It was a fortnight. Some places took me longer to get to those 14-day increments. I worked at Grimey's Basement, the best venue in town, and they don't have shows every night, so I had to stretch it out. Other places, I worked at a family farm down north of Franklin, and just inclement weather sort of stretched it out. But I also just loved working there, and so that got a little longer.
It's Banner and Company. I'm Demetria Kalodimos. We'll be right back. Well, recently your work has been seen by readers of the Nashville Banner and watchers of television through your courtroom sketches in federal court at a pretty big trial.
Yes.
You had dabbled or done one of these essays at
Yeah.
courthouses, but had you been in an active proceedings where you needed to be part of the documentation?
No. I mean, for those drawing essays, and one of the places I went was General Sessions Court, and General Sessions is anybody can go to those proceedings, and depending on what floor you go to, you might go to a parking tickets or parking violations, or you might go to violent crime, or you might go to family disputes through Chancellery Court. It's really interesting. But in that role, when I'm drawing on an iPad and I'm thinking about capturing a variety of, I'm just trying to be a witness. I sort of thought it was like a little bit like cosplay or something, because there's no risk to me. I'm not known. I remember one of the guards came up and said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm a citizen witness." And he said, "Okay." So you can do that. It was really different when Steve Cavendish from the Banner asked me to come and play the role of the public, because the public can't be there because the cameras can't go into. So the weight of like what my role was, my role is really different, but also like my sense of responsibility and fidelity to the scene was really different. And I think it made the process is really, really interesting.
This is federal court where
This is federal
cameras
court.
and electronics are not allowed. So how did that adjust your game?
It was a bit terrifying, but everything starts with just, you got to move so fast that there's not a lot of time to worry. It means that I have to work in dry media, which is pencil, charcoal, color, marker on paper. There's no Command Z. There's none of the efficiencies of drawing on an iPad, and you have to be quiet. I got in trouble my first day because I thought it was really smart, because I packed different art supplies in different Ziploc bags so I could be really organized. But just that crinkle, I was like, no crinkling. So it's like, I made I sewed little like leg pockets on my pants to hold different things, and I favored a shirt with lots of pockets. Because I told you I drew in Grimey's basement. It's dark. You're drawing in the pitch black. So I had a shirt with a lot of pockets, and I knew I had a red pocket and a white pocket and a blue pocket. I didn't really know which blue I was using, but it was sort of the same method to stop crinkling.
What was your approach? You knew you had to get the principal players. You knew you had to get the setting for the proceedings. But, I mean, there are moments that are deadly dull, and then there are also moments of drama. What do you want to capture? Everything?
So this is another reason why it was. I found it very interesting, because it was of how very different it was. I've been drawing for a long time. How very different this was, because it wasn't just about what I might take from the scene. And so I got artistic direction. I got requests for what people or key moments, what orientation to draw, because this is going to be used, and then where is this image going to go out into the world? And the answer is through a screen or through a television. So it should model that proportion and orientation. I had never thought about that before. I like a portrait style. Well, that's not really what we need here. So it was really helpful to get different direction about like what they wanted. I'm also like, if you ever went to my website, you would see a very gestural approach to making art, and I heard very quickly that that's not going to fly. What we want is likeness. We want to know if they're wearing an outfit, I want to see that. If they're wearing that tie, I want to see that tie. This is journalism. And so, I would start my day by writing down what everybody was wearing. I bought a monocular, so I could like actually see what the glass rims look like, because you're in the same room, but they're a distance away.
So you're in the courtroom.
I'm in the gallery in the back. Yep.
With your binoculars up?
With one binocular, so I'm like a pirate back there, and I had to get checked out by the court officers to make sure it's not digital, and then taking notes about what everybody's wearing, so I know sort of how to do it. Anyway, it was a different level of preparation. There are a lot of moments of boredom and not moving where there might not be something to get, but then things happen all of a sudden very, very fast. It's like fishing. You got to set it up so you can set the hook. And so there was, in the federal trial that I just finished with Glenn Cassida, touches his face a lot. And he touches his face and he moves his hand. And I thought it was really, at one point it was him and his two primary defense lawyers, and everybody's got their hand on their face. But they're moving it about every 7 seconds. So that's, I don't want to make up a drawing. I want to see a drawing and catch that drawing. So what I had to do is I had to come up with a series of drawings for different hand movements and wait to see if they came back to him, and then finish them in parts. And that's just like sort of like you just develop strategies for that. It was just the same with like the way at the Fred Thompson federal courthouse, at least the three courtrooms I've been in, you look through the prosecutors at the general court. So you're looking between heads, and those heads move back and forth. So oftentimes when you want to get the defendant or the defense or the judge or a witness, you've got bobbing heads. So you just have to sort of wait for it to come back into view.
Did you find the ideal seat, or did they stick you somewhere?
Oh, that last court, I nailed it. You want different seats for different phases of the trial. For opening arguments, it's really different from when you have somebody on a witness stand in order to see their face. The prime actor, in this case, the lawyers presenting to the jury. But I knew, at least for witnesses, it was like one great spot. I've just started a series of hearings last week. I don't know the courtroom, and it's much more high profile, so I don't have time to wander and find a spot. When the doors open on Friday afternoon, I had about 3 seconds to pick a spot because it was just filling up really fast. And the spot I picked was great. It wasn't the best. I'm actually been playing it back and forth in my mind, like what could be a better spot. But I actually am not aware where the witness stand is, so I'm going to have to just hustle.
And you're on deadline, correct?
Yeah, that's another thing that's really interesting. That I like that because your question about how do you know when it's over about the project is also a question I face constantly for any given piece of art. Like when is it over? Well, this is pretty straightforward because we've got print at 3 because it's got to be online or on air at 5, and so every day is rhythmic. Even if I'm like used to drawing things, my first drawings are not very good, and so I just commit to them. I actually do them in a pen, and I do them sketchy because they're not gonna. It doesn't like matter. I gotta like learn form and get my body warmed up, and so that arc of starting at 9, knowing I got to finish at 3. I have to be in my best position for observation and execution between like 11 and 2. And that's sort of cool to think about that. I mean, that has been working well. I've never made work that requires me to do that.
You talked about likeness. Some people
Yeah.
want spot on likeness. I've been watching like the Diddy trial,
Yes.
which you're seeing every night. And then others really enjoy a more stylistic approach, which I think yours is unique in that way, because once you commit to saying, okay, this is the style in which I'm watching these people emerge in the art, then they become totally recognizable.
Oh, thanks for saying that. This is another thing about like appreciating or riffing off of the direction that I have gotten going in there, and I get direction from multiple people.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Because some people want a focused study of an individual character. Some people want interaction between multiple characters, and then somebody asked for actually, nobody asked for this. I just really love doing, because it's at a certain point, like if the action is a little slow,
Dull.
and you've sort of dull. It's never dull. If you've sort of taken every opportunity that's like up to that point that's presented itself, and I got some time, I like to draw that whole room because I really think it's interesting how the architecture informs the proceedings. So I sat next to, oh gosh, I'm forgetting his last name. I sat next to a gentleman who's disabled vet named Chad. Chad comes from Clarksville. I bet you I'm going to see him on Friday. He goes to all the trials, all the federal trials. He's got issues in front of the state of Tennessee, and I think he's going to represent himself.
So is he there studying?
He's there studying. He's blind. He's got a little channel of sight in one eye, but he's functionally blind, and he's also hard of hearing. So he's got a headset on, and just a salt of the earth, really, really great person. And I met him, and we were talking, and he said, "Well, do you think I could draw?" I'm an art teacher. I said, "Everybody can draw. Of course you can draw." And so he was drawing next to me. So I've got and when he showed me his drawing, it blew my mind because he drew an aerial view of the courtroom, accurate to the courtroom is constructed in a series of encumbrances or spaces that you're not allowed access to.
Right.
And they're separated, and it's hard to see that from the back, even if you're in the space, how to see those relate. His drawing showed it perfectly. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is really something I would love to. It was really great information for somebody not in the room to see what was happening.
So did he have his own supplies, or were you like?
Oh, I mean,
setting him up?
He's taking notes. He's writing on a. He does have some sight, and he's taking notes on his pad, and so he was drawing in that. I do like to, in that case of trying to get the whole scene, because I think sometimes when I see, on TV courtroom drawings, it's just like this.
It's a flash of the camera. Yeah.
It takes it follows the paradigm of a camera lens.
Yeah.
But experience is really different if you have a panorama and you can really see everything, and the trappings, the seal, and the lighting. So,
I loved your wide shots.
Thank you. That's
Light
that's a better term for it.
fixtures, the wood,
Yeah.
the surfaces, and still expressions on people's faces. It's not like they were props in the scene. They're still alive.
It was really interesting at General Sessions courtrooms because it has to be the case that the judges, presiding judges, have a say on the decoration of their courtrooms because they're different. I remember there was one judge who had all of these statuary across the front of his desk, and I thought that's sort of odd and Gothic. It's all this like Greek statuary, like the Discobolus and stuff. I thought that was anyway. That's not the case in federal courtroom. They're pretty spare.
What's the feedback been? Your work's probably, the courtroom work is probably being seen wider than it has been prior to this.
Oh, for sure, for sure. My biggest critics are on the couch next to me at home when we're watching TV.
Yeah.
But that's still fun. I'm really excited about my students seeing this in action, and so that the last trial happened in the last couple weeks of classes, and so I was really excited to know that they knew about it, and it was fun to talk to them about it. I mean, on Instagram, everybody loves everything. So I don't know. I haven't, my folks weren't into me getting into art, but I know my dad was really proud when I was on Fox News. He was really excited to see that. So.
It's Banner and Company, and my guest is artist Paul Collins. We'll be right back. Let's talk a little bit about some of your other high-profile work. You did a series of vote signs that people have seen. And is that something that you're going to continue in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I think that's like sort of a project that, claimed me. I've done free vote signs for anybody who wants one. The last 3 election cycles, I'll be doing them again.
And what do they look like, just for those that haven't
They
been?
look like goofy animals that say vote. I've done painted cardinals more than anything, but I dumpster dive scraps of wood. I cut them into shapes. I paint them, and I write vote on them, and I put them around town or give them away. So it's sort of a silly thing, but I don't know if you knew this, but elections are pretty fraught times these days. And,
so I've heard.
And we're voting at a lower and lower percentage each time. So I think we peaked out at 55% this last one after going from 62 to 66% in 2020. So not going in the right direction.
Another project has been your unbannable books.
Yes.
These are oversized.
Yeah. So I described a sort of a growing doubt about just making personal works in my studio, and sort of a need to reach out more. I think the way that has I mentioned working in an increasingly public channel, and it's not that it's like that's all my work, but it's a continuum from the personal and private work in the studio to public. In the last couple of years, besides the vote signs, I've started what I call advocacy publishing. So I make. In my private studio, I started making giant books. And by giant books, I mean 6 feet tall and 4 feet wide. So when you open them, and they do have articulatable pages, it's a big, beautiful painting. So it's 8 foot wide and 6 foot tall. It makes a big impact. Last year, I met a librarian, and Tiffany Fontenot at Vanderbilt, and we brainstormed the idea of having an advocacy-based project to combat censorship or talk about the rise of censorship, and have it in her library at Vanderbilt to coincide with Banned Books Week, which is usually the last week of September, first week of October. This year it's the first week of October. And that evolved into, over the course of last year, around this time last year, I thought, well, why don't I just make big books and have other people paint them? So we did 25 of these giant books, and they were on display at libraries throughout the National Public Library system, up at Austin Peay, at TSU, at Vanderbilt, and then at the Southern Festival of Books. And the response was really positive and overwhelming. So we're doing it again this year.
Are these original stories or classics or a mixture of both?
A mix of both. So in some cases, it's usually a pairing of a poet and a painter. In some cases, the writer is going to select a specific passage from a banned or contested book, like Leaves of Grass. And the artist will then respond visually in the space of this big canvas covered book I've made. In many cases, and maybe most cases, the writer or the artist are going to collaborate together and talk about books that have meant a lot to them. And then the poet will write an honorific poem sort of relating to the themes of that book or that specific passage from the book. So that's original text. And then the artist will respond originally. In the case of the writer I worked with, and that's Christine Hall, my neighbor, she allowed me, we talked about things that are important to us. She allowed me to pick from a variety of poems, and then we worked collaboratively and made our book together. So she was sewing and painting with me side by side. And in some cases, there were some books that were just about the love of books. And the book in its essential form, is antithetical to censorship. It is a problem. It is an uncontrollable, transmissible unit of knowledge. And so for people who are just, Leslie Patterson Marks is a local bookmaker artist who makes the most magical books that just show her love and trust of the form. And that inclusion of that book is really important to me because, like I said, it is just absolutely antithetical to the powers of censorship.
And I just want to ask you about one thing, if it's okay.
Sure.
I noticed a section on your digital portfolio entitled Chemo.
Yes.
And it was, I had to click. I had
Yeah.
to see what was in there. And what was the inspiration for that, if you don't mind talking about it?
I don't mind talking about it. Thank you for asking. I say I work in a personal and private continuum to the public. And I have a show up right now at Elephant Gallery of these paintings, and they're paintings based on the experience of my daughter going through chemotherapy. Yeah, she's doing great. She's finished. But, that was the thing that was the story that walked in front of me this year. So, while it's a little difficult for me to talk about because I think about my daughter, the paintings are actually pretty sassy and in many cases silly. There's some depressing ones, but because my daughter is, she's a sarcastic teenager. She's a senior in high school. She just graduated from USN. She's going to college next year.
Wonderful.
Her scans came back clean, but her attitude throughout this year, she was never, oh, woe is me. She was, going into chemo, she had this power outfit of hyper colorful clothes. She had socks, Cheetos socks, and she had Lightning McQueen Crocs, and is really preposterous outfits that she would wear through this really awful process. And I really let those colors and patterns inform these paintings. So the paintings are. It was, I don't want to say it was a challenging body of work to make. It was an important body for me to, work for me to make. And I was delighted to see, my daughter's engagement in the making of those works.
Could you have gotten through that time without expressing yourself artistically?
Probably not. I'm somebody I might not have shown them if she didn't. My daughter lost all of her hair, and so she looked like a funny popsicle. That's a terrible thing to say about somebody who's gone through chemotherapy. But we have a joking we have this sort of relationship, or actually, no, she has the personality that she's totally grounded, and so she was talking about how she looked, and I did a painting called Mars Attacks. Mars Attacks is about Martians that come, and they're all little bald guys, and so I did a painting of her, and it's called Mars Attacks. Now, I'm not making fun of her. She thought it was hilarious, and so I was like, that allowed us both to, I think, just like drop that off.
Right.
And so they did play I know a role for me. I hope they played a role for her. My dad bought that painting, so for maybe for more than both of us, it did some work. So, but that is the body of paintings that I just finished. Yeah.
So off she heads to college.
Off she heads to college. Yeah.
Studying what?
So my daughter is a recovering computer programmer. She learned more in COVID about programming than I learned in 10 years as an industry, as a technologist in New York City. And I thought that was the deal. She was going to study computers, and that's what she's done throughout high school. Last summer, she was an intern at the Vanderbilt Museum of Art and Vanderbilt Art Museum, and she loved it. She loved it. I think she's going to be an archivist or library sciences or maybe museum studies. I don't know. I'm not. I don't even want to.
Speculate.
You get to go to college and try things and change. But that's what she's excited about right now. So that's what I'm excited about right now.
Banner and Company is a production of the New Nashville Banner. This episode was produced, edited, and mixed by Steve Haruch. Original music is by Verlin Thompson. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or go to NashvilleBanner.com. You're in good company. The fishbowl in front of you contains the last question.
Oh.
And it's sort of luck of the draw. Someone who sat there before you
Let's see what we got.
is curious what you think.
Oh, what's your favorite?
What's your favorite new restaurant in Nashville?
Who's it from?
It's from Kelly Henry. Oh, without a doubt, my favorite new restaurant in Nashville is Kisser. It's my wife's favorite. She loves going to Kisser. But there's a new Japanese pizza place up on the east side that is really exquisite, but I can't remember the name. So it might be named Show or something like that. But the answer is Kisser.